curious to learn so much more about you. I mean, you're an actress, a filmmaker, you're a lawyer, a philanthropist. What prompted you to think about and start the London chapter for Dress for Success?
Yes, I think I started out as a volunteer. So about, well over 10 years ago. And it was when I was in the traditional practice of law. And I used to volunteer with Dress for Success all the time. And I think women who are in the workplace, we get women working.
Yeah.
When I moved to London, I had already made close relationships with the worldwide CEO. And so she called me and asked me to do her a favor. And I said, what is that? She said, I need you to restart the affiliate in London. And I'm passionate about it because I, like many others, have gone through an experience of being made redundant, or as
Yeah.
we call it, US downsized.
Oh,
And so I know exactly what it feels like to want to work, but not be able to.
yeah.
And time period, it was during the financial crisis of 2008.
Yeah.
Uh, Entire legal department got laid off, and
Yeah.
we were all made redundant. And it took me 11 months and 44 job applications to find my next job. So I know exactly what it feels like to repeatedly want to get back into the workplace or find your footing and just need the support. None of us succeeds in a bubble. Fortunately, I had a slew of women that supported me at that time. So we want to be that for as many women as we possibly can. And so that's what inspired me to say yes to starting Dress for Success in London. And I'm also the founder for the Chattanooga affiliate in Tennessee as well.
Oh, amazing. That's really fascinating because right now we're going through a similar
Yes.
kind of environment, right? With the cost of living crisis, some kind of layoffs planned, and especially in high tech sectors in the US and to an extent in the UK as well. And you're going to see a lot of women probably out of work.
Yeah.
And what is the role we're all going to play in trying to get them back into work and rebuilding that confidence? Because I imagine when you were laid off or downsized or made redundant, whatever the word of the day was, that hits your confidence, even though it's not to do with you, it's not personal, it's environmental. It's really hard not to take that personally. How did you recover, and what advice would you have for people who are going through that right now?
It does. It starts to erode at your confidence because even though you know that you may be in a situation of economic crisis, and we know that this environment, but after a period of time of applying over and over and over
Yeah.
again, you start to question what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
What I tried to have daily affirmations that I am okay. I
Yeah.
am enough. I'm okay. And I did have, again, a slew of women, girlfriends that came around me that constantly reinforced that I was okay. Well, Juanita, we're in an economic crisis. You know that no one is hiring. Sometimes the narrative that goes on in your own head because of the erosion of confidence, it leads to you questioning yourself, doubting yourself.
Mm.
So I think it's very important to surround yourself with people that are going to speak life into your situation, that are going to support you in what it is that you want to accomplish. I think that's what we've done thus far at Dress for Success, especially in Greater London. We've seen a huge increase in the
Yeah.
number of women that we are serving. And it's unfortunate, but fortunate that we are there. We know statistically that women are affected more than men in this crisis that we're in right now. And we have seen our numbers increase significantly.
Yeah. And so one thing that I thought was really interesting, the approach that you take, is quite holistic, right? So there's the support, but we also look at confidence, we look at physical confidence, body confidence, image. And can you talk
Yes.
about that a little bit, what your experience has been with that? And we talk about hair confidence quite a bit, being comfortable in your own hair, feeling like your hair is faithful to your identity, and you can present you in the best light possible.
Right.
Can I talk a little bit about hair and identity and how that's changed over your career and your relationship with your body and your hair?
Absolutely. Especially as a woman of color and as a Black woman in the corporate environment, hair becomes a very nuanced issue and topic, in that oftentimes we are expected to assimilate to whatever mainstream ideas of beauty,
Yeah.
and what is acceptable in the workplace. It's interesting because I think it was just 3 years ago in the US, we actually had to have laws passed to
Uh-huh.
make it illegal to discriminate against Black women in particular, or women with textured hair, locks, different braids, different ways in which we wear our hair in our natural state. It's
Yeah.
amazing bringing yourself in your natural state to the workplace could become problematic. I've experienced it. As Black women, our hair changes. We have a lot of versatility in our hair. But
Yeah.
as a lawyer, I was always encouraged to assimilate, to wear straight hair, to not wear my hair in this natural texture. I am natural. I don't have a chemical, process on my hair to straighten it. And I have had different experiences, both as an attorney and as a filmmaker, being in different environments, in different sets, in different countries, and different cultures. And so bringing your natural self to the workplace can be difficult at times because of that assumption that we are supposed to assimilate,
Yeah.
and that there are always a lot of questions and, oh, what did you do with your hair? But when others change their hair, you don't receive or observe the same type of responses. And so, Black women are not monolithic in
No.
nature. Different. We're very diverse. I've experienced those challenges. I've experienced people touching my hair without permission, having and feeling like you have the lack of agency of self to truly bring yourself to the table. And that is mentally unhealthy,
Yeah.
because it doesn't allow you to be your natural self. In the US, in some places, we call it code switching.
Yeah.
And that can be whether you're the way you show up and appear,
Yeah.
or speak, but it is a place where you are uncomfortable to bring your natural self to the table. And I've been there.
Yeah.
The day that I decided to quit my job and to work for myself, there was a sense of freedom that I could bring my full self just to the world.
Yeah.
And it is a burden that lifts, and being able, and I think you grow into the confidence. It's not something that you automatically have. I didn't reach that until I was at least 35, at
Well, that's
least.
interesting because like the support we need to give are to women who are really starting off their career, because how do you push back against that? Like I remember in my first proper job in a management consultancy, I was told that my curly hair made me look unprofessional and that I should straighten it or tie it. And I was like, I didn't know how to respond. So of course I just like nodded and smiled. But that was
Yeah.
when, it would have been amazing to have the right response at the right time to say, well, actually, that's a bit prejudiced.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Like, why do you feel that professional women look a certain way? And that's when I thought, well, God, like if I have it with curly hair, like Black women must have it so much worse, because it's that expectation. And there's also, it's there is kind of the racial element and the stereotypes and prejudices there as well. And you're battling so much from such an early age at the very start of your career, but you're only growing confidence in your 30s, and you're beginning to say, I don't know about that, and now I feel I can push back. So do you feel like we are having the right conversations at the right time? Like are we in a better place, I suppose, than maybe we were 10 years ago? I'm curious, and I wonder your experience as Mrs. Universe.
Mhm.
You are I understand the first Black be Mrs. Universe. Like, do you feel that's like a harbinger of change? Does that kind of, is this the way things are going to be in the future? A lot more equal, a lot more on merit, or do you feel like, no, I'm a one-off, and actually there's so much more to do?
I feel a balance of both. I
Right.
feel encouraged
Yeah.
that the day has come. I feel that it is interesting that it took us until 2022 to have a woman, a Black woman, to ascend to the title of Mrs. Universe. And I want to make it very clear to people who are watching, because some people don't know the difference between Mrs. and Miss.
Yeah.
So it's Miss with an R. And I like to say the R is for respect and representation. And so it's for married women,
Yeah.
not Miss. Because we've had a few Miss Universes, but not a lot. And when you look at that, it is a direct reflection of where we are as a society and the standards that we hold for what is beautiful and what is acceptable.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm hopeful that this day brings about change. I'm hopeful for what it means, but I also recognize what it took for me to get here.
Yeah.
And so often people say, oh my gosh, you do so much, you're so many things. But had I not been all of those things, I wouldn't be here. And that is the unfortunate truth, that sometimes we are held to different standards than our counterparts of different backgrounds. I am hopeful that we are in a new day, but I am also realistic and honest about where we are, what it took to get here, and how long it took to get here.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And what you're talking about, what you're saying is, you have to be 5 times as brilliant, 5 times as creative, 5 times as hardworking to get to the same spot as someone else. And that's a real challenge, because you're so constantly improve yourself and go beyond that. It's just, actually, it's great because you achieve, but it can also be quite wearying, I imagine.
It can. I remember when I first started practicing law, I had to been 25, 26 maybe,
Yeah.
because I hadn't met my husband yet. So it was before pre-Keenan is what I call it. So
The
I
pre.
remember,
Yeah.
yes, litmus says, but I remember when I was at the firm, and I don't know if they consciously did it and if it was anything that was intentional, but I was one of the few associates that year. I had an MBA and a JD at the same time, my law degree and an MBA at the same time.
Yeah.
I passed our exam, which is the entrance exam in America. Um, they would always find a need to explain why I was in the room. If we met with a client, and what I mean by that, if we met with a client, they would literally go through my entire resume, down to who my parents were, where my parents worked,
Oh my.
um, an entire pedigree to explain. But when I looked around, I noticed they never did that to the men and the young men who were associates in the room, to the white associates who were in the room. It was only me to explain my existence in the room. So when you talk about having to be 5 times better just to show up in the room, that is very real and very honest, and it is exhausting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's sometimes it is exhausting to break down these walls and barriers. And I think we're moving towards a new age where we are no longer seeking to break down doors, but to build our own doors, to build our own tables, and to decide who gets to sit in the chair. Now that takes a power
Yeah.
differential that matters, and that's a
Yeah.
reality.
It's
Yes.
something that, as you speak, um, it it got me thinking about whether I'd experienced that in some way. And it's funny how you sideline these things that you think, actually, now that I've paused and reflected on that, yeah, absolutely. Because in my experience as a younger woman, um, in in a setting with, because I used to work in international development, and in a bit of international development that was quite male heavy, a
Hmm.
younger woman of kind of mixed background in the room. I did get that quite a lot, but I just dismissed it. I didn't know why I was kind of being so overly introduced every time.
Yeah, it
And
is.
maybe my naivety, I thought, oh, that's sweet. But in reality, it was a justification. How funny.
Yeah, an interesting observation. I think if it always happens, mine was extreme though. Like to go
Yeah,
to
yeah,
these.
yeah. Imagine that, talking about your parents. Good God. How is
Yeah,
it?
and it made it very noticeable
Yeah,
when like,
yeah, exactly.
so but I think it's an attempt also to find relatability, and that's really what connects us. That's what moves
Yeah,
people to mentor, moves mentors to sponsors, and really creates the environment, especially in the workplace, for people to support you is when they identify with you. And I think it was the American Bar Association about 15 years ago did a study as to why Black women
yeah.
were ascending to certain partnerships and certain positions, C-suites within the legal field, just within the US. And what they found, they coined this phrase called the living room locker room factor.
Uh-huh.
And hair and appearance plays into that.
Yeah,
In that locker room factor is that male camaraderie.
yeah.
So regardless of race, regardless of background or culture or ethnicity, there's a commonality of speaking in a locker room fashion with men.
Yeah,
Living room factor is I remind you of someone that would sit in your living room, your mother, your sister, your daughter, someone, some female in your life that would be in your living room. And when you remove both of those, where do we fit? And so
Yeah.
that is often the issue that plays out in the workplace, especially as it relates to appearance. And that's when you get these ideas and concepts of, I just don't know how to relate to her. I don't know what to say to her.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we are all far more common
Yeah.
and in common than we do differences if you really take the time to think about it. But sometimes appearance can be that first barrier that people have to overcome.
Absolutely, exactly. It's just you are in a way kind of overthinking it because as you just said, there's so much more that you'll have in common. You're just kind of in your day-to-day quotidian existence, you're not used to quite interacting with a Black woman of a certain age, etc., etc. So
Yes.
it's quite interesting. So then you decided, okay, law, I like it. I don't like it that much. I want to do something else. And part of your pivot was, and seems to deliberately have included philanthropy. Can you
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about that and how you've, I think that, you know, reading through your background, I just, mission driven is something that really came to mind. You know, when you look at your production company and the kind of stories that you're focusing on, the
Mm-hmm.
charity supported, it seems that mission really drives you. How do you balance like productivity with mission? You know, and by productivity, I actually is probably the wrong word to use, but like making a living with having
Mm.
a, and having a family as well. But you know, we can put that to one side, but
Sure.
there's just so much there that you're trying to achieve. How
Mm-hmm.
to align?
You know, I think people underestimate when they think about people that go into film, into production, they forget that film is a business, that
Yeah.
television is a business. And so where there's business, there's profit, there's revenues, there are all those things. And yes, Purpose Production is a nonprofit, but it's still a business. Dress for Success is a nonprofit, but we still have staff that's salaried and they still make a living. Just because you're in the nonprofit sector doesn't mean that you don't make a living. And so because film is a business first to me, I approach it that way. So
Uh-huh.
people talk about in terms of the projects that we do, because of my legal training, I approach things from the end backwards. So when we draft contracts, you always draft worst case scenario and you draft backwards into that project. When I approach projects, I approach them from profit backwards. How do I make a profit first? How is this? Because the profits that we make go to fund the things, not only salaries and things that we need to live and sustain ourselves, but also sustaining the mission and the project
Yeah.
and other projects. So, for example, some of the streaming proceeds of the show that I have coming out now, and they go to benefit Dress for Success, both in London and in Chattanooga. So it's always, you have to balance staying true to the ethos of what it is that you set out to do, but
Yeah.
understand that it is a business first. And I think, and I tell people all the time, my undergraduate degree is accounting. I have a
Uh-huh.
master's degree in business. So I'm always looking through that lens first, balancing the ability to treat your passion as a profession. It's
Yeah.
something that you be intentional about before you undertake it. Sometimes we get into an emotional place and we feel what we want to do, but we don't do the research to find out the business nuances. But and that's with any undertaking, whether you
Yeah.
want to open a hair salon or a production company, it is a business first.
That's really good advice. And if you're someone who is doing a day job, how do you balance that with being mission driven? I suppose what I'm asking here is kind of what advice would you give to someone who's thinking, okay, look, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm a management consultant, or I work in a bookshop, whatever, but I'd like to do more. Like, how do
Mhm.
you go suggesting that someone thinks about the issues that really resonate with them and then give their time? Um,
Mhm.
I feel that there's so much you could give time to, and it's so difficult
Yeah.
to choose what to care about. And I wonder
Mhm.
maybe it'd be useful to understand how you went through that process and what advice you'd have for someone thinking in those ways, thinking
Absolutely.
about that.
I think you have to start by volunteering, because then you'll know and you'll be able to gauge. Again, you know, I was practicing full time as a lawyer and volunteering for Dress for Success. And you have to work it in terms of one, your ability to manage your time and what you have the
Yeah.
time to do, but also volunteer at numerous places so that, or multiple different charities, so that you know which organization is really a true fit for you. Because not all charities, while they have a great mission, their organizational structure, how they go
Yeah.
about their mission, really may not align with who you are and how you like to give back. So I think selecting at least 5 different organizations, understanding what season you're in also. I'm a big proponent of seasons. It's not always the season for you to step away from your job and decide, I want to go start my own nonprofit, or to pivot from the for-profit world to the nonprofit world. I prepared for this when I was practicing my last year as general counsel, associate general counsel, when I was in America before we moved to Taiwan and before I launched the show. I had the show, the vision for the show in 2015. I didn't start rolling the cameras until 2018. I didn't quit my job until 2019. I prepared. And so
Wow.
preparation, it's not, so people look at it as like a snapshot that I just decided one day I'm going to be a philanthropist and I'm just going to step out. No, it takes preparation, as any career shift should. And oftentimes you have to prepare financially. I
Yeah.
saved my entire salary my last year of practice. Now I'm married, so I could do that, but it was intentional. And there were days that I, did forego shopping and different things because of the bigger mission in my life that I
Yeah.
wanted to invest in. And so that's what I decided to do. And I prepared. It wasn't until, I guess, 3 to 4 years before I decided to go full time into what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And it was the right season because we moved away from America and I couldn't practice law. And I knew that that was my signal that it was the right season.
Right. That's super interesting. So prepare, think,
Yes.
shortlist. Don't feel like you have to kind of find one thing, but then also it sounds like you're saying go beyond the mission and actually to the operations, and
Yeah.
really question whether the charity that you want to work with, or the area you'd like to support, whether it's environmental or race related or gender
Yeah.
related, whether the organization itself works in a way that aligns with your mission. I think
Mhm.
that's quite helpful because it kind of would stop you maybe from biting off more than you can chew, or would certainly help me do that, and not feeling so overwhelmed by splitting my time in so many different ways and then not really maybe achieving very much at the end of it all. And I suppose in terms of Dress for Success and where the London chapter specifically, but where you would like to take that, and the kind of work you want to be focusing on as we go into this year, a challenging year for quite a few. And as you said, women will experience the fallout of economic hardship much more acutely than men.
Yes.
Where would you like to take, in an ideal world, where would you like to take Dress for Success, and what's your ambition for it this year?
This year is our year of expansion and growth. Like I said earlier, unfortunately, we are seeing a huge influx of women that need our services. And I say it's unfortunate because it really speaks to the economic times that we are in.
Mm.
Fortunately, we're here, but our staff is very lean. So this year is one of growth, both in London and in Chattanooga. I think all affiliates are feeling the need to expand. And so with that, we are fundraising extensively in order for us to expand our staff so that
Yeah.
we can board more and reach more women. So we would like to reach more women. Our services are expanding. We have women that are contacting us now asking, do you have children's clothes? Because they cannot afford clothing for their children. Because what we do is not just helping women, but everyone that supports her, everyone that relies on her, and the trajectory of her entire household. So it is combating poverty directly, and also equality in the workplace and the pay wage gap. Right now, I think post-pandemic, statistically, we know that it set us back 32 years in terms of equity and pay wages. Yes. And so really being an advocate to have those dialogues, to have the exchanges that we need to bring these issues to the forefront, but also to empower women to be at their absolute best. People know that we give women clothing, but we do so much more. We are beyond the suit. We dress women from the inside out. And it's the interview training, CV
Mhm.
reviews, mock reviews, all of the ongoing support
Mentor.
yes, that we need to continue to give to even more women. Right now, we helped around 1,700 women last year, and we could probably do 800 more. So we are fundraising fundraising extensively to be able to expand our services and reach more women that need our help.
And what would your request be to women in our community and the men community, but to in terms of what they can do to support?
Absolutely. You can go to our website and we have options for support, but I like the option sponsor a woman. It takes around 200 pounds to sponsor a woman through our program for the entire year, really around 18 months. And when you think about it, 200 pounds is a sacrifice for anyone. But even if you gave 50 pounds or 75 pounds or 100 pounds or whatever you can give, every amount adds up. So
Yeah.
sponsor a woman's journey. Go to our website. It's dressforsuccessgl.org. And sponsor a woman, give a donation. We are bursting at the seams with clothing. We always have more than enough inventory, but we have to be able to expand the scope of who we can onboard and expand our staff. So sponsoring a woman would be ideal. That's exactly what we need, and we would love that type of support.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It was a delight meeting you and talking to you and learning so much from you. You give me a lot to think about, and I hope everyone who joined benefited from that. And yeah, really looking forward to working with you over the next year. Have a lovely evening where you are. I hope you have a time with family or whatever else you want to do tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm actually headed out. I fly out tomorrow for the leadership conference for Dress for Success. I'm headed to New York, and I'm hoping. I ordered my Paradise Fold headgear, so I'm hoping that it will come. I'm wearing it's not the same, but it's the spirit. So I'm hoping that it arrives before I get on the plane. But I'm excited about the year ahead with this partnership, and thank you so much for the support that you're showing, for all that you do to support women and the confidence and body confidence of women. So thank you.
A real pleasure. Thanks so much for your time, and speak to you soon. Good luck in your work.
Thank you. Bye-bye.